Hello, everyone. Today I have the master of crime thrillers with us in Author's Corner for Writersmelon. He is Vish Dhamija. I'm not sure if you have heard of his name, but he has more than 10 books, right?
11, yeah, thank you.
More than 10 books to his credit, all of them crime thrillers. He was just showing me his bookshelf and the books, the pile of books that he has written. So, without wasting much time, I would love to welcome you, Vish, and do tell us about your journey so far as a writer in the last one decade, over a decade now.
Thank you for having me, writers Belen and Priyanka. My journey, as I mostly tell people, started as an accidental writer. So I had this plan of writing a book because it was in my bucket list. You know, people have various stuff in bucket list. And I wrote Nothing Lasts Forever, which was published by Srishti in 2010. And I actually thought that that was it. I've written my book, it job done, tick. But it didn't stop selling, and people, after a while, I guess that's how it happens, that people then wait for a second book, and after waiting a while, then if nothing has come out, they write to the author or the publisher. So I got a few emails saying, when is the second one coming? And I thought, maybe then I should write another one. And if you notice, the first book came in 2010 and the second one came in 2014. So I got back into writing the second book, which was Bendi Bazaar, in 2013, and that got published in 2014. The first publisher took it, and that stayed on Amazon Crime Best List for years. And I guess that propelled me into writing more, because I realized that I had more stories to tell. And then there was an audience that was looking for stories
Crime
from me.
thrillers.
And therefore, I experimented with legal fiction, which has always been close to my heart. And I'm told I'm the only one currently writing in English in India, but I'm
Yes.
sure more will join the club of legal thriller writers. So here I am. After 14, I have never looked back. I've always written, never bothered about when and how it will be published. I just write. I have a literary agent in India, as I was telling you, and I send it to them. I and then patiently wait to see where it kind of lands up. So that has been my journey in the last 12 years, 11 books. You have to minus the COVID year, because nothing got published anyway. Very few books got published,
Okay.
and so that is my journey in short. I can go on forever, but
Amazing.
it's the time. Yeah.
Yes. So, yes, 10 years, 11 books, and I don't know, so many readers on your way. Let us talk a little bit about your writing process, because I am very, very intrigued by how a writer thinks, how an author gets, how do you get your ideas, and how do you flesh it out and bring it to life in a book. Give us an example of any of your recent work or
So I have various ways. So obviously, I observe people for my characters. Not necessarily that I speak to Priyanka and then Priyanka will end up being in a book, but it's subtleties of the mannerisms when it comes to characters. Some of my books have been inspired by true events. None of them are like true crime or something. I have to. So, for example, in Heist Artist, I was looking to write a crime caper, and instead of inventing a painting and then making it look like it's lost and stolen, I was at the museum in Amsterdam at Van Gogh, and they give you that thingy to go around,
audio guide. Yeah.
audio guide. And Van Gogh happens to be the most stolen artist in the world, something I didn't
Okay.
know. And one of his paintings, surprisingly, has been stolen twice. The first time it was stolen, it got recovered. The second time it went missing from a museum in Egypt, it's still missing. So now that becomes the backbone of the story.
Okay.
That
Okay.
if the painting is missing and no one knows where it is, you
Okay.
can always say that it is in India. And therefore, the whole plan of stealing
Okay.
it and kind of passing it on came from there. Mughal again came from a technical loophole in the law that existed uh, in all around the world until 2001 or 2003, until they found a criminal and realized that they had been collecting DNA in a wrong way. So those are some true incidents,
Wow.
just a little spark of incident. The whole story is fictional,
Is built. Yeah.
and
Amazing.
these are few of them. Some of, but my largely when I write a story, I conceptualize what the crime would be,
Hmm.
how it will happen, and
Hmm.
how it will unfold for the reader and for the protagonist if the protagonist is investigating it.
Okay.
And everything else is as you start writing, you once you've fleshed out the characters get a life of their own, and you think a character can do this versus
Hmm.
not do that, and
Hmm.
that's how the story rolls forward.
So your protagonist is mostly a investigator and not the criminal
Not
themselves.
necessarily. In High Started, it's a criminal.
Okay.
In Mughal, it's just an ordinary rich man. He's
Hmm.
everyone is around him. It's I
Hmm.
think the punchline was that the lion is alone, the wolves are circling. So he's kind of in the center of everything.
Hmm.
In the justice, which is cold justice and uh, unlawful justice, I'm forgetting it now. He's a lawyer. So he's a lawyer. In
Justice
Deja
Served
Karma,
Cold is your latest book. Justice Served Cold, just to tell the
no,
people.
cold justice. Yeah.
Cold
So
Justice,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. So
Cold Justice.
it is a lawyer. In Deja Karma, it's a negative lawyer with a negative personality. So I as the story lends itself, it doesn't
Hmm.
need. Only in Rita Ferreira is
Hmm.
the protagonist, the DCP Rita Ferreira.
Hmm.
In Nothing Lasts Forever, it has a set of negative characters leading the story. In Nothing Else Matters, it's not a clear gray, black or white. It's a gray character leading the story. I'm just trying to look at the books and say. So yeah, it's all over. I don't start writing with the protagonist in mind. I start
Hmm.
writing with the story in mind,
Story in
and if
mind.
the story lends itself to being told from an anti-hero, I
Hmm.
don't stop myself from doing that.
Great. And what is your, what is your process when it comes to the research part of it? Like, do you actually look at criminal records or some files or some, I mean, how true do you think these things could be, or how much can you really fictionalize these aspects?
So although it's fiction and crime fiction or legal fiction, and it doesn't have to be real, what I tell people is it has to be realistic. कि it is probable, ऐसा हो सकता है और
Hmm.
ऐसा हो सकता था,
Hmm.
is what I base everything. So it can't be total fantasy. So
Hmm.
my one of my favorite places to go, and I'll be open about it, is indianqanun.com. It's a website. So
Okay.
any case that has been solved, or the decision has happened by the
Hmm.
courts is in public domain. Anybody everywhere has a right to look at it, what the case was, how it was tackled, who were the two parties or more than two parties, everything is available on the web.
Hmm.
For legal fiction, I don't know if you know, I tried studying law, but I
Hmm.
dropped out after 1 year.
Okay.
But several of my friends and colleagues went on to become lawyers. So that kind of, I'm fortunate that I have
You
that,
have that circle of
you
people.
know, friends that I can call up and ask. And as you start writing, it becomes slightly easier
Hmm.
because people know when you call them that you're asking for a specific purpose.
Hmm.
So I have a lot of lawyer friends I can call.
Okay.
I have a lot of friends in police now who I can call.
Okay.
And there was once in Mughal specifically, we got stuck between me and the editor, and we had to pull someone from the forensics in Haryana
Wow.
to prove the point I was making. So, as you write, people know your intentions are not to kind of commit a crime, but your intentions are to,
Write
because
a story. Yeah.
if somebody calls up and says, "Tell me about guns," and you say, "Why do you want to know about guns?" Because it's not the best question.
Correct.
Then there are books that I buy on weapons to be used, because I realized, being a foreigner here, the less I research on guns on the web, the better my. So
Yes, I was
you need
actually going to ask you, like, when you do these online researches, like Indian Qanun or I don't know, on weapons and all, it could be like open
But
up.
Indian Kanun is like a repository. So
That's still
everybody,
okay.
a
Yeah.
dictionary. You want to see more words. You want to see more cases. But yes, you have to. I read a lot. So I read a lot. I read a lot of books in terms of crime fiction currently. We smokeheads.
Okay.
Uh, that also enhances your language.
Correct.
So you can just say the sky is blue, or you can basically paint a picture of the sky.
Hmm.
That's the difference about writing
Absolutely.
fiction, and it has to be realistic. So research, and yes, the web is always there for research. I primarily base my books in cities that I have
Been
been
to.
in. So
Hmm.
like Bombay, Delhi, Ajmer, Madras, sorry, Chennai, Mumbai,
Hmm.
Delhi, and so you have a realistic flavor of the place. It's not necessarily the Google Maps, the road goes there and the road goes there, but your picture of uh, kahan pe thela laga hoga. So
Hmm.
this time I was in Bombay, you keep your eyes open, you talk to the cab driver, and he or she will always tell you more details than and I think as a writer you would know that you observe more, and without you realizing, you kind of hold that information there, which subconsciously comes out when you start writing. So
True.
it's a simple writing process. I don't it's and writing is, I think, 50% skill, 50% is patience. You have to
Patience.
sit at the computer and type it out.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's one very famous quote by Ernest Hemingway that the only way to write is basically just sit and write
Right.
and bleed through the typewriter. So, yeah, I found something very interesting that you just said about your how you get your ideas, like from a common event, you build up the whole story. Then you also talked about the setting. Tell us more about your character development process. Like, do you really observe a lot of people, and do you and is it always necessary for you to create characters who you know or you can really relate to? Mostly, let's say, since you live in the UK, is it easier for you to always imagine Indian characters, and how do you go about it? How do you approach the whole character building process?
So I've had debates about this with various authors at various literary events, and in my mind, I still will stand by my belief that characterization is a very important tool in storytelling. So
Absolutely.
long after the story is forgotten, it's the character. So I always give the example of that film Sholay.
Hmm.
You might forget the story, but you still remember
Remember
Dhanno,
the
which was
characters.
just a horse of Basanti,
Yes.
and Basanti herself wasn't the biggest character. So that is how characters tell the story. So yes, I observe people,
Hmm.
not just in real life, but also in films and also
Hmm.
in series that we watch a lot these days. And and it's not necessarily that I base characters on someone specific. So what I might take is your smile and somebody else's hair, and your mannerisms versus my tastes. So it's a combination. So when I actually build a character, you can't pinpoint and say, oh, this is after Priyanka. It doesn't work that
Okay.
way with
It's
me.
like a mixture of
It's a
several
mixture of
people.
what personality traits I kind of want to transfer to the character, and once they have that traits, or if the character is shown listening to a particular kind of music, then you continue with that journey and wherever it takes you. Unlike, I
Yes.
don't know if you must know Hirsch, the person who developed Tintin,
Okay.
but he
Tintin,
used
I
to
know.
base
Yeah.
characters on people. So Professor Calculus was one of his uncles.
Hmm.
So he kind of did it that way, and that is a very logical way of kind of picking characters
Building a
into it.
character.
But I normally do a mix of what I think as a. So in my characters, one or two traits will always stand out that differentiate the lead characters from the others that are in the background. So you will always have
Right.
Gabbar Singh, and you'll always have his whole crowd behind him, who
Hmm.
will have a personality or a role to play. But what would stand out is Gabbar Singh and the Samba.
The primary.
That that has to be there. Then if your characters don't. So I read certain books which I leave halfway in between, and
Hmm.
that is my problem about reading. Nothing to do with books. If by the 10th chapter I can't identify who's Anita and who's Geeta, then I think I've lost the plot. I have
Yeah.
lost interest in the book. So it should, even when Geeta, I'm just making it up. Eh?
Yeah.
Even when Geeta talks to you, those that dialogue should, without the voice, because books don't have a voice, that voice, not the sound,
Should sound
to
familiar.
tell you
Yeah.
if you are talking or Rita talking.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you haven't made it very clear in the mind of the reader as to who's will do what.
Yes. Yes. I think recently I read a very interesting thriller. It's called My Sister is a Serial Killer.
Oh,
And
lovely.
and I
Mary Cook.
yes,
I have
some
heard this.
African
Yeah,
writer.
yeah, amazing.
And the narrative was so gripping, and the character sketches were so well fleshed out. I mean, there was no point in the whole story that you will get confused who is who and
Hmm.
what
Exactly.
is she talking
Hmm.
about. So
Hmm.
that's one thriller that I read in the recent times, and I really loved it. So I would like to ask you, who are some of your favorite thriller writers in India or abroad? I mean, mine would be Gillian Flynn any day, and of course, I read some of your books and loved them as well. Who would be your inspiration, like really role model writers for you?
See, I wouldn't name any Indian author at the moment
Okay.
because Meri Pitai hogi if I say X versus Y. So I'd rather not.
Yes.
Everyone is brilliant.
Yes.
Uh, but अगर कोई force करता है तो I always respect and say सुरेंद्र मोहन पाठक जी हैं.
Yes.
So at least
Yes.
I get out of
Absolutely.
that debate. So
Yes. The
I'm
Hindi.
not getting into
Yes.
that debate because वो
Correct.
क्या है कि everyone is kind of, अब किसकी book ज़्यादा बिकी कम बिकी आप किसी, I don't want to get into that debate. So
Got
okay, my
it.
favorite, I would say Michael Connolly is top of the pile.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read him. You must. He has made a character called Harry Bosch. The series is also available on Amazon. I love Harlan Coben. I mean, he has a lot of series on Amazon, yeah, Netflix. But he writes. He started with the series, but now he's more, standalone books. Lee Child, I mean, the less said, the
Lee
better. I'll
Child.
just
Yeah.
finish one of his books. Uh, Peter Swanson is one. He always writes standalone ones. And this Doug Johnson is someone I've recently discovered. I think I would rate him very high. I mean, this is Noah to a different level.
Okay.
So I have a few favorites. However, I also try and find new
Newer
authors
voices.
to
Yeah.
kind of hear a different voice, a different narrative. So we also like, and these days you have an ocean of web series that I
Yes.
watch. So we also watch the Swedish and the Norwegian and the
Yes.
Icelandic and the Japanese, and so the world has opened up, and which is
Mhm.
what people need to realize, that it's not just uh, whatever is available. Everything is available. So you're
Available.
not
Yeah.
competing only with Indian authors. When somebody goes to buy a book at the bookstore, it's not just five authors, it is 7,000 authors.
Absolutely.
So that makes the game a lot more complicated, a lot more difficult, and everyone. But in my understanding, the market is big enough for everyone to survive.
Yes,
Now,
that
it,
would have been my next question actually. I mean, when you know that there is so much good material available in the market, be it the web series, the books, and you have still written like 11 books, but what about people like us who are thinking it now? I mean, what keeps you going and what kept you going when you wrote your first book? Is it the best way is to have very low expectation or and really enjoy this whole process? What would be your advice?
I think you should enjoy the process. So ऐसा नहीं है कि मेरे को I haven't been told by the publishers कि आप एक mythological लिखो, but I don't enjoy. It's just not for me. So
Yeah,
one thing is very important. If you do not enjoy doing it,
don't do it.
walk away, because if you don't enjoy it, you will not give it your best effort. And
Yes.
anything worth doing is worth doing well. That I know it's a
Yes.
cliche and it's very मतलब रगड़ रगड़ के लोगों ने
No, that's
बना
true.
दिया.
That's true.
But what is the point of doing something creative if you're not enjoying it? If you're not enjoying it, job तो आप और मैं कर ही रहे हैं ना. So what is the purpose? No, I mean,
Very true. Very true.
what is the point of getting involved into something more which does not give you any more pleasure? So why would you
Yes.
go and play golf if you don't like it?
Yes.
It's the same thing. I'm doing it for my pleasure. And ऐसा नहीं है कि नए authors को कोई scope नहीं है. I always tell people, first of all, read a lot, know
Mm.
what's in the market, know
Yeah.
what is selling, and always think of how you can stand out in the crowd.
Yes.
आप जाके बैटिंग करने लग जाओ, सचिन से मुकाबला करोगे तो आप you will fail. How do you stand out? How do you
How do you
differentiate?
stand out? Yes, that's true. How do you find your unique voice? How do you
Yes.
stand out?
How do you differentiate? How is your story different? How is your storytelling different? How is your character different? How are you taking, first know the truth before you
Yeah.
distort it. So
Yeah.
find out what's there and what's not there.
Yeah.
Because jumping into the same bandwagon कि भाई मैं भी वही कहानी लिखती हूँ एक और mythology, तो वो तो फिर you are
Yeah.
competing against the best of the best. How do you,
Yes.
so that is it. It's and if you have a good story, I'm sure there are buyers. It's just that you have to, one, write it differently. So first person, third person. And so I don't write a very chronological account. I always go back and forth.
Back and
I
forth.
always go first person, third person, first person, third person. So it's the differentiation of not just the story,
Also the
the
style.
characters and the telling
Yeah.
and the narrative and the
Narrative.
language.
Which
So
is like very
I
unique to yourself, right?
which
Which
is
is something that you have
what
to
I want.
realize.
Exactly. The reason I've been resisting writing mythological is, and I was there at the launch of Code Justice, and I said, so you already have a character. Like
Mm.
for example, you take Arjun in Mahabharata.
Mm.
अब वो जीप तो नहीं चला सकता, वो तीर भी मार सकता है ना. तो you have already, the character has been in the minds of people for
For
hundreds of years.
ages, yeah. I mean,
So
it's an individual forte. I mean,
the
if
skill set,
it's
I
a skill
can't.
set. Yeah.
Yeah. So I fail in that. So I can't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
That's
need
it.
deep understanding of philosophy. You need deep understanding of all the
Exactly.
scriptures or everything that is before, after the entire universe, basically.
Exactly. And how
And
do you
you
then
have,
distort it?
yeah, and you have found your universe to be this whole crime thriller, and you have stuck to it. And which is what I was saying in the very beginning, that you have really stuck to the genre and you have really stuck to the whole world. And that gives a very clear idea. Whenever I'm looking at a Vish Dhamija book, I know what are the different types of things that I can expect from it. So, and somehow you make things sound so simple. I mean, you make things sound so regular, and that is so refreshing. And I'm glad that we had this conversation, because often we just make things complicated in this whole writing process. And I think the best lesson that I got from you is enjoy it when you're doing it, and things are not
Otherwise,
that.
don't do it.
Yes.
So I'll tell you. एक तो मेरी शक्ल से लगता है मुझे philosophy नहीं आती, तो I'm very happy. I was there at one of the lit fests where they had invited young authors to present their work. So I wasn't part of the team evaluating it, but मेरा session नहीं था, तो I also went and sat in the background, and there were literally agents there. There were a few publishers there, and these younger ones were presenting. And then introduce कर दिया कि ये भी एक author हैं, तो people came to talk to me. And the first question the person asked, and I think he was about 20 or 21, college से निकले ही होंगे. He said, कितने पैसे बना लेते हो? I said, you're approaching me
That's
from the wrong end. Because अगर पैसे ही बनाने हैं,
reality
तो I can
check.
give you 100 professions that will make you more money. Why get into
Correct.
this?
Correct.
So
Correct.
don't think of J.K. Rowling and think कि मैं तो कल निकल गया. ऐसा नहीं होता है. If you're, that's the truth of it. We
Absolutely.
know it, you know
Absolutely.
it, but उसमें if you start from a wrong end, there's
Yes.
not much further. And I hope all the best for the person that
Yes.
he
That they
goes
make money
and
and
does
make
it,
it
and he does
sustainable.
it. I'll be very happy. But the approach is wrong.
Absolutely.
If the approach is wrong, there's a little chance of success. And for all you know, कई बार हो भी जाता है. But
Yeah.
you need to get the probables right to get to the right outcome.
Yes.
That is what I always tell people. Enjoy it.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you so much for talking to us, Vish. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Priyanka,
And
and I wish you all the best as well.
yes,
Uh,
thank you very
let's
much.
stay in touch. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vitamin.
Thank you. Bye bye.